Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Mr. Fincham's Fireside Follow-Alongs, and today we're going to be continuing on with Beyond the Horizon. As you can see from the screen here, we left off with Sarah being struck by a cart and falling to the ground unconscious. Now, what was she doing? How did she get in this situation? Well, they finally made it to India, and when she and the cook were walking through the market, buying provisions, just kind of scoping things out, checking things out, they found out that Tom, the cat, had ran away. So what does she do? She takes off after him, running through the streets of this strange and unfamiliar town, and she is hit by a cart and knocked unconscious. And that was how we ended chapter 2. So, as always, we are going to review the questions here first for today's readings. And here is the first one, the reading and writing task. At the bottom of page 34, the first thing Sarah says since her accident is a one-word sentence. Why does the author decide to use just one word? And the text-to-self connection. How would you communicate with someone that is helping you but speaks a different language? Pariah speaks a different language and Sarah needs to get back to the ship. What would you do to help Pariah understand what you need? Write a paragraph or two telling me what you would do with vivid detail. So again, use details. Okay, use details in that. And the extension question. On page 32, when the Indian girl first speaks to Sarah, the author says her voice danced over an unfamiliar tongue, comforting, reassuring. What do those word choices tell you about the girl and her effect on Sarah? So, she can't understand the girl. She can't understand Pariah. But we can read people's tones. You know the difference between someone who is upset with you or someone who is trying to comfort you, right? So, what do the word choices tell you about the girl and her effect on Sarah? And there is also a video about making ship biscuits. Now, some of these I have not been able to add on the extra ELA videos. It won't allow me. So you guys, if you want to check them out, you're just going to have to use the link on the newsletter under the ELA questions and tasks. So, with that being said, let's continue on with Chapter 3, Beyond the Horizon. Chapter 3. The eyes that stared down at Sarah were dark and curious. The girl had a purple headscarf, faded and worn, covering long black hair. In her nose was a tiny hoop of silver. She smiled to see Sarah was awake. Sarah was lying in a small room with mud walls. Light streamed in through an open doorway, and outside in the courtyard a water buffalo worked on some feed, its jaws grinding. Sarah recalled the market and the oncoming cart. But what of the trade's increase? How long had she been lying there? Panic rose up through her chest again. Sarah felt her head where it had ached and tried to sit up. Nahi! The girl wagged her finger and gently pushed Sarah back down. She spoke to Sarah now, her voice dancing over an unfamiliar tongue, comforting, reassuring. Daddy? The girl called out, and an old woman shuffled in from the courtyard outside. In her hands were a bowl and a cup. The woman bent down and carefully lifted Sarah's head and put the cup to her lips. Pani, she explained. Now we're going to go on to page 33. So here is the girl who is helping Sarah. It's a picture of her. So she has a purple headscarf, dark hair, dark eyes. You see the silver hoop in her nose. Now, Sarah, her first thought when she woke up was, oh my gosh, I got to get back to the ship. I got to get back to the trade's increase, right? I don't know if the ship's going to leave. I can't just be lying here in India. I need to get back to the ship. She tries to get up. Her head is still pretty injured. And this girl is, kind of telling her, no, you need to lay down and rest. You don't need to be up right now. You've suffered a terrible head injury. The last thing you need to do is be walking around, with this head injury, right? Now we're going to go to the next page. Page 34. Here's Sarah. Now, notice the scratches on her head. Okay, first paragraph. Sarah took a long drink of water and lay back down. She felt so tired, so weak. The old woman ran her hand down Sarah's cheek with a soft smile, and Sarah thought back to how her father had done the same thing just before he'd left. She'd been so horrible to him. She wished he were there with her at that moment. She would react differently this time. The old woman scooped what looked like brown mud from her bowl and smoothed it down on the lump on Sarah's head. The smell was overpowering, stronger than the spices in the market, but it felt cool and soothing, and Sarah's eyes began to close. "Father," she murmured. Next page. So again, page break. So this is a different scene. First paragraph. "What the blazes do you mean, lost?" Captain Booth looked up from the map that lay on the cabin table that he and Lieutenant Armitage had been studying. Cook stared at his boots, cap in hand, the first mate by his side. "Yesterday when I went to the butcher's to get some meat, I turned around and Sam was gone. Just vanished, Captain," Cook explained. "I thought he'd have come back by now." So, now we're back at the ship. Here's Captain Booth. And Cook is explaining to him, hey, we went to the market to get some provisions, and Sam, also known as Sarah, right? Because remember, Sarah is pretending to be Sam, is gone. And so now the captain is aware that one of his shipmates is missing. He doesn't know it's his daughter, though. So we're going to have to see how this plays out. Now we're going on to page 36. First paragraph. Captain Booth slammed a fist onto the table. "I'll not see one of my crew forsaken. Send out some men. You go with them, Cook, and bring him back." "Yes, Captain," said the mate, leaving the cabin. "Foolish boy," said Captain Booth. "We can't afford to let these tidings hold us up, unfortunate as they may be," said Armitage. "I just hope he is found quickly," muttered Captain Booth. Armitage turned back to the map. "This stretch of the channel just south of the town looks favorable for the trading post. A good approach from the sea and closer to the trade routes to the north." "Is the land occupied?" Captain Booth inquired. Armitage peered at the map and shrugged. "A village or two, perchance. It matters not. Peasants can be persuaded to leave." Captain Booth nodded. "Have your ship ready to sail. We weigh anchor tomorrow whether Cook's boy has returned or not." So, yes, they do have somebody from their ship missing. But they still have a mission to do. They still have a mission to complete, right? So, they're looking for a place to establish the trade post. Now, they seem to have found a spot, but Captain Booth asks, is the land occupied? Meaning, does somebody live there? And Armitage just kind of shrugs, and he says, oh yeah, maybe a village or two, but those people can be persuaded to leave. So we'll have to see what he means by that. Thinking back to our books about explorers, trials and tribulations, were the explorers mean, or were they nice when they were trying to persuade people to leave or do certain things for them, right? Something you should keep in mind. Now, Captain Booth says, whether the boy is back or not, whether we find our shipmate or not, we need to be ready to go for tomorrow. So, if they come back empty-handed, we're leaving. If they come back with the person who's lost, we're leaving. It doesn't matter. Tomorrow is the day we're leaving. So now we're going to go to page 37. Again, another page break. So this is a new scene. First paragraph. The next day, when she woke up, It soon became clear to Sarah that her hope of making the trade's increase before it set sail were slim and getting slimmer. Anguish washed over her in waves. Her head hurt too much to move. Each time she tried to walk, blinding pains shot through her skull, forcing her to lie down. She could only manage a few steps at a time with her rescuer, whose name she learned was Pariah, under one arm. So it sounds like a pretty serious injury. Every time she gets up and tries to walk around, she gets a really, really bad headache. And it's so bad in her skull, she has to lie back down. So even if she wanted to, well, we know that she does want to find the ship, but she can't. She's too injured still. She needs to heal, right? And Pariah is the one helping her. So again, they don't speak the same language. It is nearly impossible to communicate. But she still has found somebody who has helped her, which she desperately needed, right? Here's a picture of them walking together. Notice that Pariah is kind of holding her up. Now we're going on to page 38. First paragraph. There was also the small matter of trying to figure out where she was. Pariah helped Sarah outside and laid her down in the shade of a tree, making her comfortable. Then, while Dottie kneaded dough, Pariah tended to a small fire. In the heat shimmering off of the land, Sarah could just see the river. It was not too far from where she lay. Across green farmlands in the other direction, she thought she could detect the silhouette of a town. Was it the same place where the trade's increase was docked? So here's a picture of her laying down and resting, and here's the river, right? So even if she didn't have a head injury, let's pretend that she wakes up and feels fine. She's still lost. She still doesn't know where she is. And she can't just walk up to somebody and ask, "Where am I?" They don't speak the same language. She can't write down in English on a piece of paper, "Where am I?" because they don't speak English. So they wouldn't understand what it meant, right? So there's still a pretty big problem at hand. So now let's move on to page 39. Pariah's home was no more than 2 rooms, 2 mud huts in a small village of similar huts. The huts all had curved, thatched roofs, and the inside walls of each were smooth and straight. Stuck to the outside were dark cakes made of animal dung, perfectly flat and mixed with straw, and each with a handprint of the person who'd made it. Sarah watched as Pariah fed some dung cakes into the fire as fuel. So here's a picture of them by the fire, right? Dung is just another word for poop. This is a very common thing in countries where they don't have a lot of maybe wood to chop. The few trees they have either are used for shade or for, growing fruits or whatever. So they can't just go chop down trees, but they still need to make fire. They got to cook their food. They got to stay warm. They have to boil water, right? So what they do is they take this animal poop, because there's a lot of animals around, and they dry it out in the sun. So there's no more moisture in it. And they'll put in straw or hay or maybe dry leaves, things that will burn, right? And then they use that to fuel their fire. Now, this doesn't probably smell very good, but it keeps them alive, and it helps them keep a fire going when there's not a lot of things to use as fuel, right? So, that being said, we're going to end there for today. But before we sign off, I'm going to just recap the questions for you guys for today's reading under the ELA questions and tasks section of your newsletter. So the first one, the reading and writing task. At the bottom of page 34, the first thing Sarah says since her accident is a one-word sentence. Why does the author decide to use just one word? What does that one word tell you about what she's thinking, what she's feeling? Now, the text self-connection. How would you communicate with somebody that is helping you but speaks a different language? Pariah speaks a different language and Sarah needs to get back to the ship. What would you do to help Pariah understand what you need? Write a paragraph or two telling me what you would do with vivid detail. So you can add this onto your story from Monday if you'd like. I know that on Monday you guys wrote about, imagine you're lost in a big city, you don't recognize any landmarks. What do? Try to integrate today's writing into your story. You find somebody and you're trying to communicate with them, but you don't speak the same language. What do? How would you go about that? And the extension. On page 32, when the Indian girl first speaks to Sarah, the author says her voice danced over an unfamiliar tongue, comforting, reassuring. What do those word choices tell you about the girl and her effect on Sarah? And there is also a video attached to the newsletter, the video about making a ship biscuit. Now, I'm going to try to add that to the extra ELA videos. If you guys can't find it there, then just click on the link on your newsletter. Like I said earlier, some of the videos are not allowing me to add them to our playlist for some reason, so sorry about that. I don't really know why, but it's just not allowing for some videos to be added to our YouTube channel. But that is it for today. Thank you guys for following along. As always, please write me on Seesaw, shoot me an email, leave questions or comments in the comment section below. I want to know what you guys think about the story. I've enjoyed reading some of your writings. I appreciate those of you who are putting in a lot of that effort and putting in a lot of those details in your story. It's been fun to read. Remember, during these times when we're stuck at home, it's important that we're still working on those skills of writing, of using details, of using dialogue. All of those things are super important. Thank you guys for following along, and I hope to hear from you soon. Bye-bye.